Hi, my name is Lindy Lyles, and I'm the Director of Social Emotional Learning here in San Angelo ISD. Thank you for agreeing to be a sub with us this year. If you're new, welcome, and if you're not, then you more than likely heard me talk about this last year. What we're going to talk about now is classroom management, and we're going to do that through an acronym that comes from Safe and Civil Schools. That acronym is STOIC, and so we're going to talk through the 5 variables that are the most important things to remember with classroom management. The first thing is structure. So the S stands for structure, and what we want to make sure, I think the most important thing for substitute teachers is to think about and remember that your role is to maintain the level of structure that was already put in place by the classroom teacher or by that campus. So most campuses will have some school-wide guidance on what their expectations are, and unless it's the first day of school, then it's highly likely that the teacher has already put in their systems for classroom management as far as classroom procedures, seating charts, social contracts. You may see a lot of social contracts across the district where that social contract is an agreement between the teachers and their students of how they will like to be treated. And so there will be words on that social contract that can help you guide those conversations with the class, such as being respectful or listening to each other, speaking one at a time, being honest. Those things that you find on the social contract will help you guide the structures in that classroom as well. You want to make sure you arrive early, especially if it's a new campus that you've never been on, to make sure you meet with the teachers, maybe other office staff or somebody that can help guide you for what the classroom and the campus management plan is. We want to make sure you're following those things. The lesson plans should be there. If they're not, you might want to make sure you have just kind of in your toolbox a few things that you might do for time fillers for that age group of students if they did not leave enough to fill the time. So those are the things to all consider with structure. The T is for teaching or telling. If the structures aren't in place and it's the beginning of the year, or for whatever reason the students aren't following what those expectations are, then you obviously, as a substitute, can communicate your expectations very clearly to the students. Before we start correcting behavior, we just want to make sure that we have told them explicitly what we expect. And here are 3 areas that we can all think through as we go into a classroom. And these are also areas where you will find in the upper grade levels, even starting out in those older elementary classrooms, where students will want to push the boundaries and see if you know what the expectation is. So, around conversation, can we talk? At what level? How loud? Can I talk to just my neighbor, or is it okay for me to talk all the way across the classroom? We need to be thinking through those scenarios. How do I get help? Do I raise my hand? Do I jump out of my seat and come to your desk? Do I ask a neighbor? And movement, can I go to the restroom whenever I want to? Can I go get a drink of water? Do I sharpen my pencil? If those things aren't clearly in place by the teacher, those are things that you will want to quickly think through and really explicitly communicate to the students what you expect for that time that you will be with them. And so the first thing I always think of for minor misbehaviors, before I start correcting the behavior, is did I actually tell them? Of course, I worked in a junior high when I was in the classroom, so the junior hires always find the loopholes, so that helped me to think through. I have explicitly told you exactly, who you can talk to, when you can leave the classroom, because they will always kind of test you on, well, I didn't know, or you didn't tell me that part. So we always look at misbehavior as our first opportunity to clarify and teach. So, okay, I didn't tell you that you couldn't do this. So let's clarify and teach them again before we start assigning consequences. And we'll talk about that consequence part later and what we do for more major misbehaviors. For the observe, this is very important because 90% of all of the minor misbehaviors that we deal with on a regular basis really would disappear if adults would supervise in the way that we always need to supervise. So, by actively monitoring and scanning, even if that class has been assigned to take a test or do something very independently, it is important that we as substitute teachers do not get on our phones or get lost on our computer and forget what's going on in the rest of the class. We have got to be making sure that we are monitoring just by scanning and kind of walking around in patterns around the room lets the students know they are being supervised and they are being watched. So if it's not okay to have food in the class and those things have been clear by the teacher, if I sit down at my desk and don't pay attention, there's a good chance those things are going to be happening. So make sure that we are up and monitoring. While you're doing that, it's a great time to just model friendly, respectful behavior and talking, quietly to the kids or making some connections, letting them know that you appreciate those who are doing the right thing and who are making good choices while you are there. Don't ever leave the class unattended. Make sure you know who your neighboring teachers are. We know that emergencies happen, and if you need to step out of the room, always have a plan for who will come and monitor that class while you are out for a few minutes. You might need to even send one of the more responsible students next door to the assistant principal to get somebody to come and monitor that class while you step out and take care of your needs. If I could respell stoic, I would put interact as the first letter because it is the most critical thing that we do. And this is another area that I think if we got right as adults, we would see a lot of our discipline problems be reduced. Relationships are critical because if I know you, if I respect you, um, and if you look like a safe adult to me, then there is a good chance that I will respond more when you are correcting and guiding my behavior. So we want to make sure that you seek and build rapport and appropriate relationships quickly. We aren't there to be their best friends if we're in the junior high or high school. We're not there to be on the same level. We are an adult there to make sure that those students stay safe. So we want to make sure that we are modeling appropriate relationships, interacting with every student in a welcoming and respectful way. If you're there repeatedly, then getting to know their names, or maybe you know them from the community. So anytime you get a chance to learn names and use their names, of course, that is always going to be able to build those connections and rapport much better. The other thing that you can do that is actually a behavior intervention is to provide positive feedback when students are meeting your expectations. It is very easy as adults to point out what is wrong. In fact, our brains just do that naturally. But instead of telling the kids what they can't do, try for those more minor behaviors, try some minor ignoring the minor misbehaviors. And when you see a student doing something that they should be doing, then tell them that. So, for example, I could say, Thank you, Johnny, for getting your Chromebook out and getting, logged in and right to work. I really appreciate that. Or thank you, Susie, for being patient and waiting, staying engaged in your work while I was helping someone else. I really like that. So, training ourselves to notice the good things helps a lot because sometimes we have students who are seeking attention, and any attention, even that negative attention, sometimes is better than nothing, and they can use that as a way to draw you into a power struggle. So train yourself to see those positive opportunities to give good feedback when they are meeting your expectations. For corrections, they will come. Kids are kids, and so we want to make sure we're following these five rules in these kind of five areas. When we correct behavior, we want to do so consistently, meaning we correct, we don't ignore one student's behavior, but then point out somebody else's that's very similar. We want to kind of be consistent. We always want to be calm, immediate, making sure that we do it briefly and respectfully, correcting behavior in private when we can, and having just private conversations with students, or even maybe just letting them know that you're documenting for the teacher for minor behaviors. Sometimes just letting them know that you're keeping track is a way to help them understand that you are, guiding their behaviors. Those are things that we can do. Try to stay away from sarcasm, try to stay away from power struggles. Those types of things can only worsen the situation. If there's a group of students that start to kind of follow each other's lead, they're not following your directions, and things start to escalate to a more serious situation, I would advise you to seek out a fellow teacher to come in and help you walk through that situation, or to help um, redirect that group of students, or an AP. Or if there's any type of major behavior where a student just outright um, curses or fights or does something that you know is a major behavior that goes against our campus or classroom policies, then always seek assistance from someone on campus who is there full time, who can come and help walk you through that situation. We don't ever want a substitute to get into a situation where you have to put your hands on a student. It would not be okay to restrain a student in any way, um, because we want to keep you protected as well. And so make sure that if you feel like something could go wrong, or something is starting to escalate and you aren't sure about how you might handle it, then always go and ask your neighboring teacher or an assistant principal to come and help you walk through that situation. There is no shame in that. I will just leave you with this, and just kind of don't cry in front of the kids. My sister is a substitute teacher in McKinney, and so she, texts me often, and she asks questions. Well, it's been a couple of years, but she got into a junior high classroom, and they were supposed to be taking a test, and they were not being quiet, as the expectation was to be completely silent, and she didn't know what to do. I think she was trying everything. I think she even might have had a bag of candy to try to bribe them, which is not a good idea either. So anyway, at one point she called later in the day, and I just said, "It's like, you didn't cry, did you?" And she kind of got quiet, and she's like, "Well, I did." I was like, "You cried in front of the kids?" She's like, "Yes." Um, so that's just kind of one of my things. I hope you can sense, some of my sincerity, but also trying to be a little bit funny. Do not cry in front of the kids. Don't let it escalate to that point. Don't be afraid to ask for help and go get somebody else to walk through that with you. There's nothing better to a group of junior high students sometimes to know that they made that impact on a sub. So we want you to enjoy your experiences with us here in San Angelo ISD. We want you to have a positive experience and know how great our students are and how great our teachers are. So thank you. And if you have any questions, let me know, or anything we can do to support you. We appreciate you.